Richard William Hamilton Ch was an English painter and collage artist. His 1955 exhibition Man, Machine and Motion and his 1956 collage Just What Is It That Makes Today's Homes So Different, So Appealing, produced for the This Is Tomorrow exhibition of the Independent Group in London, are considered by critics and historians to be among the earliest works of pop art. A major retrospective of his work was at Tate Modern until May 2014. Early life. Hamilton was born in Pimlico, London. Despite having left school with no formal qualifications, he managed to gain employment as an apprentice working at an electrical components firm, where he discovered an ability for draftsmanship and began to do painting at evening classes at St. Martin's School of Art. This led to his entry into the Royal Academy schools. After spending the war working as a technical draftsman, he re-enrolled at the Royal Academy schools but was later expelled on grounds of not profiting from the instruction. Loss of his student status forcing Hamilton to carry out national service. After 2 years at the Slade School of Art, University College, London, Hamilton began exhibiting his work at the Institute of Contemporary Arts, where he also produced posters and leaflets, and teaching at the Central School of Art and Design, 1950s and 1960s. Hamilton's early work was much influenced by Darcy Wentworth Thompson's 1917 text on growth and form. In 1952, at the first independent group meeting held at the ICA, Hamilton was introduced to Eduardo Pelosi's seminal presentation of collages produced in the late 1940s and early 1950s that are now considered to be the first standard-bearers of pop art. Also in 1952, he was introduced to the Green Box Notes of Marcel Duchamp through Roland Penrose, whom Hamilton had met at the ICA. At the ICA, Hamilton was responsible for the design and installation of a number of exhibitions, including one on James Joyce and the Wonder and the Horror of the Human Head that was curated by Penrose. It was also through Penrose that Hamilton met Victor Passmore, who gave him a teaching post based in Newcastle upon Tyne, which lasted until 1966. Among the students Hamilton tutored at Newcastle in this period were Rita Donner, Mark Lancaster, Tim Head, Roxy Music founder Brian Ferry and Ferry's visual collaborator Nicholas DeVille. Hamilton's influence can be found in the visual styling and approach of Roxy Music. He described Ferry as his greatest creation. Ferry repaid the compliment, naming him in 2010 as the living person he most admired, saying, "He greatly influenced my ways of seeing art and the world." Hamilton gave a 1959 lecture, Glorious Technicolor, Breathtaking Cinemascope and Stereophonic Sound, a phrase taken from a Cole Porter lyric in the 1957 musical Silk Stockings. In that lecture, which sported a pop soundtrack and the demonstration of an early Polaroid camera, Hamilton deconstructed the technology of cinema to explain how it helped to create Hollywood's allure. He further developed that theme in the early 1960s with a series of paintings inspired by film stills and publicity shots. The post at the ICA also afforded Hamilton the time to further his research on Duchamp, which resulted in the 1960 publication of a typographic version of Duchamp's Green Box, which comprised Duchamp's original notes from the design and construction of his famous work The Bride Stripped Bare by Her Bachelors, even, also known as The Large Glass. Hamilton's 1955 exhibition of paintings at the Hanover Gallery were all in some form a homage to Duchamp. In the same year, Hamilton organized the exhibition Man Machine Motion at the Hatton Gallery in Newcastle, designed to look more like an advertising display than a conventional art exhibition. The show prefigured Hamilton's contribution to the This Is Tomorrow exhibition in London, at the Whitechapel Gallery the following year. Just what is it that makes today's homes so different, so appealing? Was created in 1956 for the catalogue of This Is Tomorrow, where it was reproduced in black and white and also used in posters for the exhibit. The collage depicts a muscle man provocatively holding a Tootsie Pop and a woman with large bare breasts wearing a lampshade hat, surrounded by emblems of 1950s affluence from a vacuum cleaner to a large canned ham. Just what is it that makes today's homes so different, so appealing? Is widely acknowledged as one of the first pieces of pop art, and his written definition of what pop is laid the ground for the whole international movement. Hamilton's definition of pop art from a letter to Allison and Peter Smithson dated the 16th of January 1957 was, "Pop art is popular, transient, expendable, low-cost, mass-produced, young, witty, sexy, gimmicky, glamorous, and big business, stressing its everyday, commonplace values." He thus created collages incorporating advertisements from mass circulation newspapers and magazines. The success of This Is Tomorrow secured Hamilton further teaching assignments, in particular at the Royal College of Art from 1957 to 1961, where he promoted David Hockney and Peter Blake. During this period, Hamilton was also very active in the campaign for nuclear disarmament and produced a work parodying the then leader of the Labour Party, Hugh Gaitskell, for rejecting a policy of unilateral nuclear disarmament. In the early 1960s, he received a grant from the Arts Council to investigate the condition of the Kirchvitter's Merzbau in Cumbria. The research eventually resulted in Hamilton organising the preservation of the work by relocating it to the Hatton Gallery in the Newcastle University. In 1962, his first wife Terry was killed in a car accident, in part to recover from her loss. In 1963, Hamilton traveled for the first time to the United States for a retrospective of the works of Marcel Duchamp at the Pasadena Art Museum, where, as well as meeting other leading pop artists, he was befriended by Duchamp. Arising from this, Hamilton curated the first British retrospective of Duchamp's work, and his familiarity with the green box enabled Hamilton to make copies of the large glass and other glass works too fragile to travel. The exhibition was shown at the Tate Gallery in 1966. In 1968, Hamilton appeared in a Brian De Palma film titled Greetings, where Hamilton portrays a pop artist showing a glow-up image. The film was the first film in the United States to receive a X rating, and it was also Robert De Niro's first motion picture. For the mid-1960s, Hamilton was represented by Robert Fraser and even produced a series of prints, Swinging London, based on Fraser's arrest, along with Mick Jagger, for possession of drugs. This association with the 1960s pop music scene continued as Hamilton became friends with Paul McCartney, resulting in him producing the cover design and poster collage for the Beatles' White Album. In 1969, Hamilton appeared in a documentary by filmmaker James Scott, in which he discussed the Swinging London series and his preoccupation with mass media through a selection of his own work. 1970s–2011. During the 1970s, Richard Hamilton enjoyed international acclaim, with a number of major exhibitions being organized of his work. Hamilton had found a new companion in painter Rita Donner. Together they set about converting North End, a farm in the Oxfordshire countryside, into a home and studios. By 1970, always fascinated by new technology, Hamilton was redirecting advances in product design into fine art, with the backing of X Art Collection, Zurich, a young company that pioneered the production of multiples with the aim of bringing art to a wider audience. Hamilton realized a series of projects that blurred the boundaries between artwork and product design, including a painting that incorporated a state-of-the-art radio receiver and the casing of a Tate Modern computer. During the 1980s, Hamilton again voyaged into industrial design and designed two computer exteriors, Ohio Computer Prototype and IBDS 101, as part of a television project. 1987 BBC series Painting with Light. Hamilton was introduced to the Quantal paint box and has since used this or similar devices to produce and modify his work. For the late 1970s, Hamilton's activity was concentrated largely on investigations of printmaking processes, often in unusual and complex combinations. In 1977–8, Hamilton undertook a series of collaborations with the artist.A. that also blurred the definitions of the artist as sole author of the work. In 1992, Richard Hamilton was commissioned by the BBC to recreate his famous art piece, Just What Is It That Makes Today's Homes So Different, So Appealing, but only this time, as to what he felt the average household would be like during the 1990s. Instead of the male bodybuilder, he used an accountant working at a desk. Instead of the female icon, he used a world-class female bodybuilder. In 1981, Hamilton began work on a trilogy of paintings based on the conflict in Northern Ireland after watching the television documentary about the blanket protest organized by IRA prisoners in Longkesh Prison, officially known as the Maze. The Citizen shows IRA prisoner Hugh Rooney portrayed as Jesus with long flowing hair and a beard. Republican prisoners had refused to wear prison uniforms, claiming that they were political prisoners. Prison officers refused to let the blanket protesters use the toilets unless they wore prison uniforms. The Republican prisoners refused, and instead smeared the excrement on the wall of the cells. Hamilton explained that he saw the image of the blanket man as a public relations contrivance of enormous efficacy. It had the moral conviction of a religious icon and the persuasiveness of the advertising mainstream soap commercial, yet it was a present reality. The subject shows an Orangeman, a member of an order dedicated to preserve unionism in Northern Ireland. The state shows a British soldier on a foot patrol on a street. The Citizen was shown as part of a cellular maze, a 1983 joint exhibition with Donna. For the late 1940s, Richard Hamilton was engaged with a project to produce a suite of illustrations for James Joyce's Ulysses. In 2002, the British Museum staged an exhibition of Hamilton's illustrations of James Joyce's Ulysses, entitled Imaging Ulysses. A book of Hamilton's illustrations was published simultaneously, with text by Stephen Coppell. In the book, Hamilton explained that the idea of illustrating this complex, experimental novel occurred to him when he was doing his national service in 1947. His first preliminary sketches were made while at the Slade School of Art, and he continued to refine and rework the images over the next 50 years. Hamilton felt his reworking of the illustrations in many different media had produced a visual effect analogous to Joyce's verbal techniques. The Ulysses illustrations were subsequently exhibited at the Irish Museum of Modern Art and the Museum Boy Mons van Beuningen. The British Museum exhibition coincided with both the 80th anniversary of the publication of Joyce's novel and Richard Hamilton's 80th birthday. Hamilton died on the 13th of September 2011 at the age of 89. His work Le Chef d'œuvre inconnu, a painting in 3 parts, unfinished at his death, comprises a trio of large inkjet prints composed from Photoshop images to visualize the moment of crisis in Balzac's novel The Unknown Masterpiece. Exhibitions. The first exhibition of Hamilton's paintings was shown at the Hanover Gallery, London, in 1955. In 1993, Hamilton represented Great Britain at the Venice Biennale and was awarded the Golden Lion. Major retrospective exhibitions have been organized by the Tate Gallery, London, 1970 and 1992, Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, New York, 1973, MACB Barcelona, Museum Ludwig, Cologne, 2003, and the Neue National Gallery, Berlin, 1974. Some of the group exhibitions Hamilton participated in include Documenta for Castle, 1968, Sao Paulo Art Biennial, 1989, Documenta X Castle, 1997, Guangzhou Biennale, 2004, and Shanghai Biennale, 2006. In 2010, the Serpentine Gallery presented Hamilton's Modern Moral Matters, an exhibition focusing on his political and protest works which were shown previously in 2008 at Invalith House, Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh. For the season 2001-2002 in the Vienna State Opera, Richard Hamilton designed the large-scale picture Retard en Feu, Delay in Iron, as part of the exhibition series Safety Curtain, conceived by Museum in Progress. Just the week prior to his death, the artist was working with the Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofía, Madrid, to prepare a major museum retrospective of his oeuvre that had already been scheduled to open first at Tate Modern, London, on the 13th of February 2014, travelling later to Madrid where it will open on the 24th of June 2014. In 2011, Dublin City Gallery The Hugh Lane showed a joint retrospective exhibition of both Hamilton's and Rita Dunner's work called Civil Rights, etc. That same year, the Minneapolis Institute of Arts showcased Hamilton's work in Richard Hamilton, Pop Art Pioneer, 1922 to 2011. The National Gallery's Richard Hamilton, The Late Works opened in 2012. A major retrospective at Tate Modern in 2014 was the first retrospective to encompass the full scope of Hamilton's work, from his early exhibition designs of the 1950s to his final paintings of 2011. Exhibition explores his relationship to design, painting, photography and television, as well as his engagement and collaborations with other artists. Collections. The Tate Gallery has a comprehensive collection of Hamilton's work from across his career. In 1996, the Kunstmuseum Winterthur received a substantial gift of Hamilton's prints, making the museum the largest repository of the artist's prints in the world. Recognition. Hamilton was awarded the William and Noma Copley Foundation Award, 1960, the John Moores Painting Prize, 1969, the Talons Prize International, 1970, the Leone d'Oro for his exhibition in the British Pavilion at the Venice Biennale, 1993, the Arnold Bode Prize at Documenta X Castle, 1997, and the Max Beckmann Prize for painting of the city of Frankfurt, 2006. He was made a member of the Order of the Companions of Honor in 2000. He was presented with a special award by the Bogside Artists of Derry, at the Royal College of Art in 2010. Art Market. Hamilton has been represented by the Robert Fraser Gallery. The Alan Christian Gallery in London is the distributor of Hamilton's prints. His auction record is £440,000, set at Sotheby's, London, in February 2006, for fashion plate. Cosmetic Study X for a 2014 retrospective at the Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia. The government-owned museum insured 246 works of Hamilton for €115.6 million against loss or damage, according to an order published as law by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports. Bibliography: Lucia Lippard, Pop Art, London, Thames and Hudson, 1985. Richard Hamilton, Collected Words 1953–1982, New York, Thames and Hudson, 1983. David Robbins, The Independent Group, Post-War Britain and the Aesthetics of Plenty, Mit Press, 1990. Richard Hamilton, London, Tate Gallery, 1992. Etienne Lullen, Richard Hamilton, Stephen Koppel, Richard Hamilton, Prints and Multiples 1939–2002, Richter, 2004. John Richardson, Richard Cork, Richard Hamilton, Hamilton, Dickinson, 2006.